You know that song, The Kids Are All Right? My question is, well, are they all right in top level football when they're indispensable? I don't know if you've been following the news. I'm sure you both have. The reports from Spain, at least, suggest that Barcelona are looking, or the reports from Spain before Barcelona faced Club Bruges were that the club was looking to protect Lamine Yamal, their mercurial youngster, because he's playing a lot, and youngsters, well, their muscles are still growing and all of that sort of stuff. And then we saw him against Club Bruges and we realized just how indispensable he is to this Barcelona side. Lars, are the kids all right playing as much, and particularly Lamine Yamal? What have you seen about the level of intensity, I suppose, in using him over and over again? Is he suffering?
I mean, the concern is that you overload him with stuff, and he has had a couple of little injuries, and I think it's more of a broad issue. I don't think it's healthy for an institution the size of Barcelona, with the cultural footprint they have, with the pressure that comes with it, to look to a guy who's 18 now, turned 18 this summer, and say, you are the guy who's going to have to win games for us. I don't think that's good for him in a lot of ways, in terms of the physical demands of him having to play almost every game for him, and also the mental burden that comes with that. I don't think that's great. And I think we already have an example at Barcelona of Pedri, who is probably, I'm not a sports scientist, I'm not a fitness expert, surprisingly, but Pedri, a player who probably played too many games when he was young and has had a lot of injury issues since. It's something that Barcelona, I think, in my opinion, I would like to see them get a little better at managing, because it's like a double-edged sword with the La Masia thing. Like, every single generation they churn out a couple of players who become global superstars. They never seem to miss. But that does mean the team sometimes end up relying maybe too heavily on very young guys. And I do wonder sometimes if the club needs to be a little bit stronger and say that, okay, these are important players, but we need to save them a little bit and protect them from this workload.
Andy, your thoughts on this? Because I although most of us would agree with what Lars says, you got a valuable asset, you got to protect it as much as you can. However, I wonder, even despite his baby face, I wonder if Lamine Yamal, if the coach comes up to him and says, you're the guy we're relying on, in the way that Lars said it, to win our games for him, that youngster is going to say, oh, great, brilliant. Yeah, I'm happy to do it every single week. And I wonder whether sometimes we judge youthful players as being like every other teenager of their age, whereas actually they're quite grown up, aren't they, these guys?
Beyond grown up. And I think that's always been the thing with Lamine Yamal. It's not just that his talent's so persuasive, it's that his demeanour is as well. His demeanour, not just to take responsibility, because all talented young players want the ball. But as we've said from the very beginning, the way he plays is really reminiscent of someone in their absolute peak in their late 20s. And I think the biggest danger is to forget how young he is. Now, I think some of the most valuable moments for Barcelona have been some of those little moments, or in the medium term will be some of those moments where we've been reminded that he is still 18. So whether that's insouciance when he's playing, whether that's the birthday party that's been talked about forever, whether that's him losing his passport when Spain were playing away in Turkey, and he's there sort of bent over his little carry-on suitcase outside the team coach searching through it. I love all those bits because they remind us that he is actually a young man who's capable of football, because his consistency, we're not just talking about a young player showing potential, his relentless consistency in the last year and a half or so, it's just uncommon. We can't compare him to other talented young players, even the most talented young players, because he is as good as it gets. He is beyond generational, really. And that's the problem, because the reason they're having this discussion in Spain at the moment is of do we need to give him a rest? And Lars is absolutely right. They do. They do need to look after him if they want him to be the player he is and more at 26, 27 that he is now. Because you can't keep going to the bank and expect there to still be money in there. I think that the fact is that the conversation started because of the way he played in El Clasico, because he ran his mouth beforehand and didn't back it up in the game. And then you have these other games that follow where there's not quite that explosiveness that there normally is from him. And he fluctuates during the game. And normally he's the best player for the whole 90 minutes. He runs the game for the whole 90 minutes. And that hasn't happened in recent weeks. And now, if we're looking at medium-term Barcelona, that he goes and scores a goal like he scores against Club Brugge, where you're like, yeah, we need to rest him. We need to rest him. Oh, yeah, actually, we can't rest him, can we? Because he's footballing Jesus. There's nothing we can do about it. He's just, his talent is so persuasive, it makes it a real catch-22.
Yeah, I mean, just so listeners know specifically what we're talking about, this is a guy who turned 18 a couple of months ago. He's already had 80 appearances in La Liga and 26 in the Champions League. Like, that's absurd, really, for a player
unreal.
that age.
It's unreal.
And it's something that, and increasingly, it's not just coming off the bench. It's not just playing. He is the guy that you rely on, the guy that you turn to. And I worry a little bit about that. I think, and it's something that it's a weird dynamic with Barcelona, who a couple of years started making these absolutely desperate financial maneuvers to try to stay competitive, to try to keep pace. They will say that they're trying to keep pace with the Premier League clubs, but of course the reality is they're trying to keep pace with Real Madrid. That's the most important thing for them. And they've been pulling increasing numbers of desperate levers and selling off their future for the sake of the presents to bring in expensive players. But the thing that's ended up carrying the team through this period has been the kids from the academy. It's been Pedri, it's been Gavi, it's been Cubarsí, it's been all these guys and Yamal. And I think really one way to look at this discussion is these guys that they brought in at tremendous expense should actually be doing more so that they wouldn't be quite so reliant on the babies, no?
Yeah, well, I guess it's funny because everyone looked at, and we've mentioned this before, but everyone looked at Deco, the sporting director, when he said in the summer, our priority is not to, as people who watch the Champions League semi-final and casual watchers of Barcelona said last season, get more defenders or get better defenders. Well, I don't think it's that simple, but a lot of people said that. And Deco said the priority is cover for Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, because we just lean on them too heavily. Now, funnily enough, because that's been proven right in the sense that obviously they've got Marcus Rashford and he's been great, and he's been really needed because Rafinha's been injured for a while. But on the other hand, the injury to Rafinha and the fact that they haven't got a massive squad has meant that they've had to totally lean on Rashford and they haven't been able to give Lamine Yamal a rest. Because really, I suppose ideally at this point, you would be bringing back in Rafinha, and maybe they can do that in a couple of weeks. Bring back in Rafinha, keep Rashford in the team, and give Lamine Yamal a bit of a breather. But if you're looking elsewhere in the front line at the moment, Lewandowski's had his problems, so you've got Ferran Torres playing, and they see him as a centre forward. They don't see him as a wide player anyway. And who's your other forward? João Fernandes, who again is someone who you see him and you're like, oh my God, I want him to play every game. And he's 17, so you can't. So, I mean, you're right, Lars. It's like partly their financial reality. But I guess it does show that given what they've got, Deco is doing absolutely the best job possible to try and protect the players that need to be protected.
I know, Andy, you've got a theory about, the fantasy football of the future as the game gets faster and faster and faster. Well, you tell us, because I found it quite a fascinating theory. Okay, maybe there will be some smirks and some smiles at the theory, but I think there's something in this.
Well, this was like chat over cornflakes, really, wasn't it? I floated the idea, sort of semi-seriously, that in the future, like football won't really be played by players in their mid-20s. It will be all teenagers, like players from like 15 to 21, 22, and really old guys, sort of who are like the coxes in a rowing team. So essentially, you've got, I don't know, Lamine Yamal, Max Dowman at one end, and you've got Luka Modric at the other end, as football becomes an increasingly physical game and the schedule's unbearable. So who are the players who are not going to complain about it and who can maybe physically deal with it? The younger players, I suppose. I mean, leaning into this a little bit, Lars, or leaning into, I guess, the reality of how it is for those young players. I mean, you talked about the numbers for Lamine Yamal, which are mad. I think it's worth bringing in some of the other ones, like Haaland, who's played, 350 senior games at 25. Jude Bellingham has played approaching 300 senior games, and he's 22. He turned 22 in June. Bradley Barcola, who there's been a lot of talk about his inconsistency over the last little while, and we're talking about the brilliant front players that PSG have. I mean, a lot of people are slating Barcola for his lack of productivity, his lack of finishing. He's played 90 games in 15 months. I mean, I don't know how you're meant to find clarity or consistency when you've got that. And again, if we take it back to Lamine Yamal, that's what makes his consistency on the whole even more remarkable.
Yeah, there's only one question mark with regards to Andy's theory, Lars, which is that he mentioned Luka Modric. And unfortunately, Luka Modric is the player that proves that you can still come out of it looking fresh.
Well, my theory goes in a slightly different direction than Andy's, because I think the nature of the way the game is played at the highest level is going to change. I think that's the thing that's going to happen because of this increased workload, because there's less time to rest for players. I think this period we've had, when initially through Guardiola and also through the influence of various sort of Bielsa followers, and then also the sort of German gegenpressing school of football, we've gone through a period where like the high press was the thing. Like that was the orthodoxy. That was you have to play with an aggressive high press and a high line to be successful. I think we're already seeing a slight readjustment to that. I think we're already seeing a team like Manchester City, coached by Pep Guardiola, of all people, decide that we're actually not going to do that anymore. We're going to sit back quite a lot more, partially to free up space for Erling to run into, sure, but also because I think more and more coaches think we can't ask the guys to do that 60 games a year. Like it doesn't work. And if it works, it doesn't work for very long. Even with more substitutions, even with bigger squads, it just isn't a viable way to play over longer periods of time. So I think the way the game is played itself will adjust to this this reality of the schedule right now.
I mean, I don't know if I'm taking a bit of a leap assuming that Jose Mourinho is a listener, but he has got this in his AirPods at the moment thinking, see, I'm back in fashion.
I stayed at the same hotel in Manchester that Jose Mourinho stayed in all the time whilst he was coach of Manchester United. You can go to Manchester and just say, take me to the Jose Mourinho hotel, to the cabin, and you will get, it's true.
That's a legacy. The Portuguese Alan Partridge. Do you think he had a big plate at the buffet?
It was a nice hotel. It was a nice hotel, I'll tell you that.